All right, good afternoon. This is Julie Anderson, and I have Shakina McFarland joining me to help me with this Adobe Connect session just to talk about the fifth grade Student Success Initiative to assist you with planning for intervention for our fifth grade students who need support. So we're going to make sure that everybody is able to hear me. So if you would, please just go ahead and confirm that yes, you can hear the audio. Just type your campus or yes, that works. All right, excellent. Looks like we're all on board. So we're going to go ahead and move right along with our game plan. Earlier this week, I sent out information to ISs, APs, and principals, and we may have some fifth grade teachers that will join us for or listen to this video chat. And it has the specific information regarding our Student Success Initiative plan. But our goal for today is to really help you think about how you can use the resources the district has provided to help our fifth grade students be successful on STAAR reading, whether it's for that second or the third administration, so those students. And you see up on this slide a visual that's actually from one of our Boldprint books, and the woman, I think it's L.M. Montgomery, says, "Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out about? Just makes me feel glad to be alive, such an interesting world." And this afternoon, as I was visiting with some of the coaches, we were talking about how engaged students get when you have informational books that are of interest to them. And I think that's one of the benefits about using the Boldprint materials is they get kids excited. So when we do that, it naturally takes care of the engagement piece for our students, and we can focus on helping support their learning. Okay, on this slide you see a visual that's color-coded. Of course, the days for STAAR are shown in orange because those are key days that we know are devoted to student testing. And then the three colors are representative of what we like to think of different cycles, if you will. And the first part that you see that begins April 7th, so not next week, but the week after. This year we are providing 2 new books that instructional specialists should have received this week. They are Boldprint books that are on science-related topics, and we'll take a look at those in a moment. And you know, likely there are children who will take the STAAR test on April 2nd that may not pass this first administration. So what we would really recommend is why wait till we get the results, which those will arrive, are expected April 21st. Go ahead and plan for some small group. It can be during the regular class, or it can be a pullout for those students that need that extra support. And then at the same time, you're going to be reinforcing some of the science content that they'll be tested on the 23rd. And then you see the pink, where that begins is the Monday that's right after the STAAR science test. And that's where we have our results. Many of you regroup your students, whether it's for a smaller portion of time, or if you have students that are only doing reading, you may regroup them and come up with a very specific schedule for their class where they're doing reading all day, or if they're reading in math students, they're doing reading half day and math half day. And so that's where we really begin kind of that intensive intervention instruction for those students. You see the retest days occur May 13th and 14th, so it's a very short window of time, in fact 11 days to provide that intensive instruction. And for some students, one of the benefits about taking the retest is you don't have those field test items, so it's a little shorter. And some students will be very close and they'll be successful after that. But of course, we won't know the results until really the very end of school. So we have to continue that intervention for any of those students who may be taking that third administration in June. So that's where you see the green begins the day right after the reading retest as we continue with that intervention all the way through to the last day of school. And so that's just kind of the big picture roadmap. As we're going along, if you find that you have some specific questions, do feel free to type them in. We have Andrea Keith that is assisting us, and she can address some of the questions or bring them to our attention. Okay, on this slide, you just see a visual of how students have performed by the genres on the actual STAAR test. And as you know, that began in 2012. So you see the first 3 literary genres from 2012 were below 70%. And continuing kind of that same trend, you see the 2013 test, the fiction. I guess part of the reason why that may prove some difficulties is just the higher level questioning that they're asking students to do. And it's making inferences about why did the author include this information, or, how is this literary, maybe I should say story element significant to the story. Is very deep and thoughtful questions that they're asking students. One thing that we were noting as a positive, when you look at the 2013 results, you see the first column shows the January 2014 benchmark students. So this is your students this year. And then you see last year's 5th grade students for the spring 2013. There's not that much difference between the two, which actually is an encouraging thing when you think about mid-year. Many of our students were performing at the same level that last year's students performed. So with all the instruction that's occurred since that time, I would only anticipate stronger results from our 5th grade students. But I think even this information shows us the importance of expository text, and Boldprint has a lot of informational text along with other genres, so you're going to see that as a focus in our plans. You also can see a look at how we perform with vocabulary, and then the making connections. So just wanted you to kind of have that in your frame of reference. When we're thinking about the plan, we use this information to help us make decisions about the genres and the types of questions. Okay. In this first part of the plan, which is 11 days, this is really intended to take the 2 new books that you received this week, Eureka and It's About Science, to provide some small group intervention. I would consider those kids that scored below 50%, those might be the kids I would target with this small group extra intervention. And what you'll see on the calendar, well, that we sent out earlier, that shows the day-by-day plans, that we put 2 flex days in there. We're aware that all teachers and all students will be participating in a 2-day science camp. And so we've made the plan so that there are 2 flex days that allow for you to move your suggested, recommended plans around. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you see on your screen, there are some files listed, and all of those you can go pull and gather. And so we're going to take a look at one of those day-to-day plans in a few minutes. But you'll see some other resources down there. We've had some new ISs, and so one of the important things that you need to look for is all these materials that were provided last year as part of SSI. I have a picture of the storage box that we provided. It shows the dimensions and what it looks like. It either had a blue or a black top. And all of your SSI materials should be in there, and someone from your campus should have labeled them because we provided labels for you. So as there are several books, in fact, it's probably about $800 worth of books, and that you need to be able to find so that you can use those for the 2 different cycles that we'll have. There's also a list of the materials. We're going to take a look at a little bit later what we call the Cycle 2 test talk passages. We have a booklet that we've created for students, but if you want to preview that document, then you have that there. Also, last year, campuses created some questions when we get into the cycles, so you can pull that to help you either with the whole group lesson or a small group, and then there's an example of the schedule. Okay, so, but back to our daily schedule here for just the intervention and what it would look like. you see a quick overview when you would look at the more detailed plans of the focus for each of the different skills. And so if you look on April 7th, you see it starts out with a fiction a passage that's in one of the Boldprint books, and it's focused on character analysis. The next day continues with summary. You're going to stick with fiction until you see the change of the genre, which occurs the following week. You see a persuasive text and then an expository on the 17th. And then you notice the 21st and the 22nd, you have some flex days, and then you can take the expository after the 24th and the 25th to do a making connections lesson. Okay, once we finish with that part of our schedule where it's just small group, we get the results back on the 21st, then that's where you really need to think about regrouping your students. If you have a small number of students, and by small number I mean less than 10 students, then maybe you're going to regroup those students maybe with a intervention teacher or along with a particular 5th grade teacher for a certain amount of time where you're going to do that intensive intervention. But for many campuses, they have larger number of students that don't pass that first administration, and they totally do some regrouping, and it usually involves a classroom teacher along with some of the reading support that they have on their campus, whether it's a temporary worker or a reading enrichment teacher. And so that's just an example of a schedule. You see, including some poems. I know Liz pulled out some examples of poems from Boldprint. There's also a mini lesson, and then you see the workshop where you can incorporate some technology and a test talk lesson. I'm going to let Shakina talk about the next part of our cycle.
Okay, like Julie said, starting cycle 1 with intensive intervention, this will last 11 days. You have already gotten the results back, and you would start this beginning on the 28th. You have the theme, the top secret, which is the extreme team adventure theme. If you're familiar with these books, you know that they are high interest and the students really enjoy these. There's also some Boldprint books for mini lessons and small group strategy instruction. And then if you can see in the picture, this is where you will also bring in your STAAR reading rehearsal for the test taking strategies. And remember, this is a time when your students are being pulled and you're actually going through the questions and the passages with them, not just giving it to them on their own, because by this point they have already taken the test once. Okay, here are the different Boldprint resources. They're listed here. They're also listed in the information or the packet that you will receive or that you pulled from the list of resources here on the Adobe Connect session. They're listed, and we just advise you to go ahead and start making sure that you have those materials ready to go.
Now we're going to share our screen with the day-by-day document so you can look at that real briefly. So just give us a moment. Thank you. You're welcome. To both of you. Sorry. What's the top one? Yeah, that. It's screen share. It is? So I can see it? Okay. Ask if I can see it. All right. We want to check to see that you can see the plan on the screen. So if you would just type yes, I can see the plan, or no. Okay, great. On this plan, you're gonna the part I want to really look at, you'll see really, I guess for April 7th, this is going back to that kind of that small group. You see the suggested focus. character analysis, and then underneath it you see a little line where it shows the actual book. So it's a Boldprint Talk book. There's either a regular Boldprint or Boldprint Talk is an ELL book. And by ELL, I just mean it has like extra support for really engaging students with conversation. And so the title is listed as the breakthrough and it tells the page number. So you're just going to use that text to talk about inferences that you make about characters. And then if you look down below, let's go to the next page. Okay. On April 28th, for example, you have reading workshop. You're going to be doing literary text, making inferences. So the themes are from the Extreme Team Parrot books, and we have the first theme, I believe, was the one about top secret, so very secretive. And it's great to go ahead, if the kids are not familiar with Extreme Team, there is a video, and we'll make that accessible to you as well. And you can share that in it. Then do a read aloud with the silver box, and that you have one copy in that kit of the resources we provided last year. And just do it as a read aloud. And then there's a suggested small group book where you read Team X chapters 1 through 3. And you can make some inferences about the characters and getting to know them. But the Silver Box book just introduces how the kids came across their special watches that shrink them and provide them with micro adventures. Underneath that, you're going to now see that we also have a time for some test talk small group lessons. So not only do you have your regular test talk, or excuse me, your regular strategy group that's focused on a comprehension skill, you also have some very specific, more of the test passages for students. And that one is just suggesting reviewing the strategy of chunk sum picture because it's a critical skill that all kids need to have. And there's not necessarily a passage on that day, but if you look at the passage on the next day, it says Test Talk number 5, Literary Nonfiction from Teacher to First Lady. That is the STAAR rehearsal book. And Burks was asking, are you going to have more copies of the STAAR reading rehearsal? Yes, and it'll be Form 2. We are providing that for every child that does not pass that first administration. As soon as we get the results, we'll count out those books and we'll send them directly to the campuses so that you can begin using them the following week. And we'll also have something, a district design booklet for the last part of the year where you're going to have some test talk passages as well. So you see on that one, it tells you a suggestion for the focus, and then it lists specific questions that you would go ahead and answer those questions. You don't need to answer all of the questions for a passage, but the skills that focus on the literary nonfiction, we picked out a couple of skills that work with making inferences, and so it just keeps it more in a manageable form. Okay, that kind of gives you just an overview of how we have this set up. So you have your mini lesson, you have a regular small group time, and then you have a test talk small group time to be able to, along with a mini lesson, if you look at it, you can do a modeling with a mini lesson and then small group time. All right, and then I'm going to go give us a moment while we transition back to our regular PowerPoint. Okay. All right, and all of these resources are, most of them are small group. The Wild Ride was an extra book that we love the book. Think the kids will enjoy it. It's very imaginative, and we want to make this a fun time for kids, but it's also supportive. All right, the first little cycle. This one just shows kind of overall, we took a look at the information that's on the screen. So you see that first week is focused on literary text, and we picked out particular focus that we saw a need for that. Or like on Friday, May 2nd, you see we included drama, because that's a day we're going to focus on drama. but we also want to talk about story elements and how that's important. And the following week is expository, lots of the key skills that kids struggle with. And then you see on the 9th and the 12th is the day where we're focusing on making connections, where there's a paired text. You do not see, I think, in this time poetry. However, if that's something that you feel, hey, our kids struggle with it, I think by incorporating that in the poem of the day, that you'll be able to do just fine with that. But we do have some additional poetry resources that you can utilize. All right, and then they'll have the retest, and as soon as that's complete, then go ahead and move into that second theme, where you got the endangered extreme team books, the swarm, which is very exciting with bees that actually they're these little, I want to say, devices that have been created that allow the extreme team to get in them because they work with a special company and they can fly around and they disguise themselves as bees. It's an entertaining book. And then Piranha, also a very exciting book with the extreme teams. And those are part of generally the read aloud. A little bit is done in small group. For this part of your test taking piece, you're going to have a passage from the STAAR reading rehearsal, but then you'll notice in the middle of the books there's a little white page that says Grade 5, Student Success Initiative, and it's just reading test taking strategies. And there's some kids on the front at the library. That's going to be a packet that you're going to have already created booklets. When we send you the STAAR rehearsal, we'll count out the same number of booklets for this and we'll put that in the mail to you. So those you'll be able to use for that test taking strategies. And they're simply former tax passages that have been reformatted with STAAR-like questions. Some of them are similar or the same as the tax questions because they're strong reading comprehension questions, or we created some new ones that incorporate like media literacy, the sensory language, as allows for the content from the passages. And when you look at this cycle, there's more days, of course, and you'll see again, we start with the literary text and then move that second week into expository, and finally that last week where we're doing some of the paired texts. So very similar in format. When you do the test taking, there's like an extra poem in the district made piece that you can use. It's not actually assigned on any of the days, so there's a little bit of flexibility. And of course, the decision is do what's best for your kids. So while we make these recommendations, if your teachers go, hey, I know our kids have already got this concept, what we really need to do is, this particular skill, feel free to do that. This is just to provide a plan based on the data for all students that would be helpful. So please know that you can make it work for your students. Okay, so last year when we were first venturing into our SSI and providing you with specific resources, we asked each campus to submit some STAAR formatted questions based on the books that you had. So we have most of those, all the questions that were submitted last year, we have in a PDF portfolio. It's actually down in the bottom where the files say, it says SSI book questions. You can access them there, and then of course we'll send them out with a link as well. So feel free to use them, or you can create your own. It's certainly up to you to decide how you want to use them. Another thing when we're thinking about that test taking, likely you've seen this information before, but Frank Serafini, a researcher from Arizona State University, just reminds us that we want our test taking to be intensive. It's right before the test, and of course we're in that test taking season, but it's for short periods of time. It's not extended. That's why we have a time designated for that. The teachers can enjoy the selections and certainly incorporate those strategies during the regular small group, but really for showing them how to answer test taking questions, That's done during the test talk time. Collaborative. You have students that haven't been successful, and they need to hear the dialogue from other students, from their teachers, to help them make sense of passages and help them employ those strategies. So it's much more important to make it collaborative than simply handing them a packet and say, okay, complete these and let's see how you do. Because they're not doing any learning that way, we have to be able to provide them that teaching. And of course, it's non-threatening and short. This shows the STAAR rehearsal, the selections that are inside the STAAR reading rehearsal booklet, Form 2. And you'll see an asterisk next to the expository piece and then the poetry. Those, you actually use those selections during the last part of May. And then for the cycle 2, you'll use those 2 selections, and then you'll have all of these passages that are former tax selections, except for Lost Dog. That was one that we found. But all of those you'll use during the test-taking portion of your intervention. And certainly, one of the things that we have to really look at is ways that we can make meaning and make some connections with writing. And one of the nice things with the Extreme Team booklets is they provide some clip art with the Extreme Team characters. And certainly during that time when they're doing, utilizing the computer, because you want to make it just, you've got to provide some breakup of your routines, and so incorporating the Kid Biz as well as some time to create some reading responses will be beneficial for kids, and they'll get excited about the stories that they can create with these 4 fearsome friends, and what a dynamic team. So kind of the last little things to think about, and this is for you as a team thinking about the intervention program, is what do you need to do? And the first thing is, okay, let's think about our student groups. How are we going to group students? Are we going to do this during our regular reading time, during that first small group time? Are we going to do it in a pull-out situation? And certainly thinking about student groups when we get the results back, how are we going to regroup students? So those are some things you already want to think about and have a plan in place so that you're ready to go and not having to think about it that moment, because certainly there's a lot that goes on with that. Preparing the materials, number 1, go find them. And the Eureka, and it's about science, came just this week, so those are easy to find. But the other ones, you'll have to find that box of the materials. We don't have extras here at ISC. We put all of the resources out on the campuses, so you're going to have to find those. The only materials we do have will be the STAAR Reading Rehearsal book, which we will count out and we will get to you that week of April 21st, and then the other test-taking booklet that we ran through media, and we'll provide those to you. And you're going to need to think about how this is going to be organized and where you want to store these materials. And then, of course, along with that, depending on the number of students that you have, particularly for that intensive intervention time, where are students going to be? Which teachers are you going to use? Are you going to have some rotations that you might have teachers working on different parts? Maybe one teacher is doing the test taking and you flip-flop, and the other teacher is doing the small group time with students. So those are some considerations to think about, who's all being involved and where you're going to be having the intervention occur. And then finally, taking the plans that we have and charting out the lessons that you know your students need to do, and figuring out a way to put all those pieces together to be able to provide students with very thoughtful and engaging intervention plan so that they can be successful. That really concludes what we wanted to share with a 5th grade SSI. We're going to give it a few moments, so if you have some specific questions, then we will address those. So please feel free to type those in, and we'll answer them as they come. Oh, and yes, I see Alt is sharing that they have a lovely STAAR video that they created, and I got to see just a small part of it yesterday, and I'm trying to remember what song that is. Maybe you can remind me. Oh, from Frozen, yes, Let It Go. And I'm going to tell you, there are some very talented drama people out there, including the instructional specialists, the APs. It was great. Yes, Frozen, you have gone viral. I love it. 4,100 hits on YouTube. Well, you are going to add to that list today. So that's great. We thank you for sharing that. It's very cute. And it really is kind of a reminder of the good things that kids need to do with test taking. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then we want to thank you for giving of your time, and we wish you all the best and much success next week and afterwards. And thank you for joining us this Friday, and have a great weekend.